Boom! What up? It's so. I'm sorry. My inner YouTuber was taking over. All right, hey guys, we're back with another tiers list, and you might be asking yourself, well, Valkrin, what is a tiers list? I didn't watch your first tiers list video. The tiers list is actually the reverse of what a tier list would be. These are the champions that you, under almost no circumstance, would want to actually have on your team in different brackets of play. And it differs from a normal tier list, being that usually you're looking at the strongest champions with the tiers list, but we're looking at the worst champions based on win rates, based on feedback from what we got from people on YouTube and on the Twitch stream, and all of it kind of compiled into a list of champions that you should, under no circumstance, play in these brackets of play, but also hopefully you don't have them on your team and you look to dodge with these champions. You want to add anything to that, Tyler? Oh, also, Tyler is joining me today. Tylair, my stream moderator and friend and co-commentator for this video. You want to add anything to that, Tyler?
Nothing in particular. On the next slide, you'll see that we've made some big changes this time around.
Boom! All right, so you want to
today-
explain this?
Yeah, of course. We are trying to get it a little bit faster because last time we had a pretty long video. So we decided to do that in a few ways. Number one, less tiers. We had 4 tiers last time. Now we only have 3 tiers. If you're high MMR, that means you're platinum or higher. High platinum or higher, so maybe like plat 1 or higher. If you're mid-tier MMR, that means you're gold to mid-platinum. And if you're low MMR, that's your bronze and silver. And, since last time we've kind of reevaluated some things, we're kind of ignoring worst-case scenarios. So, for example, Blitzcrank was on the list last time because if he pulled the enemy tank in bronze, you might just lose. So while that still can happen, Blitzcrank's win rate was pretty high, as well as the fact that, that's a pretty bad scenario, but bad scenarios can happen anywhere. In fact, that exact situation happened to us in Platinum, High Platinum the other day. But we don't hold that against Blitzcrank. It's not the poor guy's fault. And finally, we did some changes to Tree Tier. So, Tree Tier, we named it after Ivern because he was a terrible champion last patch. And he's been a terrible champion for a while. But a funny thing happened, and in that Ivern is still bad, but you can at least see maybe someday he won't be bad after the Electrocute nerfs. So we're changing the name of Tree Tier to Trash Tier. So the Trash Tier will be the tier of champions you don't want no matter what MMR you are. And for that, we have a special emote that you can see in the Twitch chat of Valkrin Trash. It's in a trash can. All right. And so if you don't remember what the tiers list exactly was or the rules of the tiers list, I made a slide for that too. Champions that you see on the tiers list, they make you cringe, just like this comment.
They make you cry. They make you salty. These are the champions that you complain about to your friends in Discord when you're in Champion Select, that you desperately try to get your team not to pick. These are low win rate champions. These are champions that just are selfish. They don't synergize well, and you consistently lose with on your team. You want to add any more to that?
I mean, the big thing is that last point there. When you win with these champions, you don't think, great, we won. You think, wow, that game was harder than it should have been. Or you think, wow, that guy was really good at that champion. If he can make that champion work, like imagine if he was playing Kai'Sa instead of Vayne. That's exactly what we're seeing here.
Exactly.
And if you don't even like this tiers list, if you'd rather see like a good tier list or like something like that, that'll be coming in a couple days. But on the next slide, I'm just going to give you a reminder that this list really changed because the new patch came out, and we're not going to go into all the changes of the patch because we already did that. So click the button on the screen if you want to go see the last patch.
The patch rundown. All right. And now let's get into it. This is the trash tier. So these are the champions that apply to everyone's ELO. This is everyone's tiers. These are what we consider to be the absolute worst champions in the entire game to have on your team, to play yourself, and just to be in these games. We got Azir, who, has been nerfed consistently because of competitive play, is extremely hard to play, very low win rate, very difficult to play. Corki, itemization is completely gutted. Win rate is in the trash can in all ELOs. You do not want to be Corki. You don't want to be playing Corki right now. Ivern, a little bit better because of the Electrocute nerfs, but the amount of time that you have to actually put in to learn and play Ivern just to make him playable still makes him trash tier. Callista, I mean, Same principle as Azir, was so good in competitive play that had to be consistently nerfed, even though she was not considered very good in solo queue for a very long time. Her itemization is bad right now. Her win rate is terrible. She's difficult to play. She's a team-based pick. Kog'Maw, another selfish pick, even comparable to Vayne on this patch, is really bad, takes a long time to scale, loses lane, difficult to play, something that you don't want to have in your team. It's harder to make Kog'Maw work than necessary compared to the other strong ADCs. Rek'Sai, even though they buffed her AD ratios relatively recently, she just does not do well in the current meta. She's just trash. Her win rates in every elo are terrible. Even the one trick Rek'Sais have given Rek'Sai up. The next is Vayne. One of the most selfish ADCs that you can play right now, has absolutely no lane control, so difficult. Why would you ever pick Vayne when Kai'Sa's up? She's just better in almost every single dimension compared to Vayne. Why would you play Vayne? Tristana, she has a late game, but unfortunately, just due to the fact that her itemization choices are not super great right now, her laning phase is still questionable. When you fall behind your last unit of turret as Tristana, you're just going to fall behind because of the E damage splashing, making it really difficult. Tristana is just a champion that is harder to win with than necessary, so she's just defined by that being on the tiers list, the trash tier in particular. Do you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I did. And so Ivern is probably the closest one to getting out of the trash. And there's one that's really close to getting into the trash. And this might be a spoiler for later, but that champion is Vi. So if you like Vi, rejoice because she's not there yet, but also be afraid. Be very afraid. All right, so we're going to start with the low elo tiers list. So if you're in low elo, you see these champions and you think, why? And a lot of them have to do with the fact that there are skill shots or strengths of the champion that are hard to take advantage of. So would you trust an Elise at low elo, or would you rather just have that be any other jungler that can gank without hitting a skill shot? Like anyone. You probably would not want the Elise in your games.
Plus, she falls off. Oh, another principle of this is like they might have an early game like Elise that's difficult to pull off, even at a high level of play. And then she just becomes like worthless because she doesn't have her true ultimate. And champions like that are like so early game heavy that if you can't take advantage of it, it's not worth playing.
Yeah, and that also applies to Jace. That kind of applies to Twisted Fate because if you don't have success with your early ganks, you're just playing a champion that doesn't have an ultimate. And the Vladimir is also a champion that they're not going to be playing the early game like they should when they play Vlad.
Yeah, and the win rates reflect that. Vladimir
also
has like a 40% win rate in bronze and
absolutely.
silver. It's just tragic. So even though you remember the highlights of Vladimir where he's one-shotting teams, you're forgetting about all the times where Vladimir just doesn't do anything because he never reached his items or the player playing it couldn't combo effectively, and that's why his win rate is just so bad.
Yeah, and then there are champions that need to scale or like that are based around scaling. So Ezreal double tier build is like the one that's popular in pro play, or maybe it's single tier now, but it was double tier for a while. Gangplank still needs to scale. Ryze needs to scale. Cassio needs to scale. Those champions,
they're hard to play too. Like playing Gangplank is like very, very difficult. He put Gangplank, Aurelion Sol. These are unique champions that play like almost no other champion in the game. And in low elo, you're just not prepared to pick something like that up. And it's just the win rates are reflected in that. And it's just not. It's more tiers than it's worth.
Yeah, and so the champions that are hard to play, I'll give the specifics. It's probably like Zoe, Aurelia, Riven, even Lee Sin is pretty hard to play, and Aurelion Sol. I think those were the ones that got to the list because they're just hard to play, and they also had other problems. And then there's some that are just. Do you trust low elo players, or should low elo players try to pick up champions that have a lot of skill shots? So let's talk about like Thresh here. Let's talk about Talia. Lee Sin again, Nidalee. When they have high impact or important skill shots to hit and you can't hit them, you're probably not going to do well. And I think the only one that we haven't mentioned on this list in all these discussions is Sivir, Aatrox, and Tahm Kench at this point. Aatrox, terrible win rate. You know, bronze and silver players can't take advantage of his strengths. Sivir, they're just champions that do everything that she does better. And then Tahm Kench, why are you trying to protect an AD carry who's probably not going to be able to play AD carry well? So that's the low elo tiers list. If you have any feedback, let us know. We'll move champions on or off the list based off of your feedback, because this is the one that we really rely on Twitch chat and on YouTube for that.
The one thing that I want to mention about Aurelia, because I know there's going to be someone out there that's like, well, Aurelia's OP. She's actually very difficult to play. Her win rate's very low in low elo because she's difficult to play at a base level. If you mess up the Q, you're not resetting, you're not getting the kill. She's a high skill cap pick where, the better you are at the game, the more effective she's going to be. And these are champions that don't really do that well in low elo because you can't rely on their skill level, right? When you have an Aurelia on your team, you can't be like, well, I hope this bronze Aurelia is very good, because that's just false hope. All right, let's go to the next slide.
All right, so the next slide is that we're moving from the low elo tiers to the mid elo tiers. And the big changes here are that everyone's going to be slightly more competent at their own champion. They're going to respect the enemy a little bit more when you move into gold and platinum. They're also going to be able to use some semblance of teamwork. So how does that affect the tiers list? Well, the number of bad champions goes down. So as you see on the next slide, instead of there being like 20 or 30 champions that are bad, now it's about 12 and then the trash tier. So the only ones that stay on this list from before are Lee Sin, Rai. Well, a lot of them actually stay on the list.
Mm-hmm.
So
for very similar reasons, and
yeah.
and the win rates back this up. They're difficult to play champions. They fall off like Gragas and Elise. Cassio's still very difficult to play. Aatrox, they can't take advantage of that. Gnar, they're just not even that great in high elo. Hard to take advantage of his laning phase, and middle elo especially. Lee Sin, too difficult to play. Rise, too difficult to play. Sejuani, generally speaking, Sejuani might not be that bad, but there are just so many better options right now than Sejuani, and her win rate's not very good at all. Tahm Kench, very difficult to play, very strategic champion. Something that someone can mess up. They could eat you at the wrong time. They could use your W offensively. There's so much can go wrong when you have a Tahm Kench in your team. And Thresh, another high skill cap pick that really doesn't shine until you get to much higher elo.
Yeah, and the big additions here are the tank junglers, and that's because, in particular, this is the elo where you can start expecting the enemy to actually play around you. So if you're playing like Gragas or Sejuani and the enemy's actually playing like Graves or another early game jungler, you can expect them to interact with you. When you're in bronze, they're probably not going to interact with you. They're probably not going to counter invade and counter jungle you. But when you get to platinum and gold, that's when this starts, and that's why Gragas and Sejuani move into the list here instead of being bad at low elo as well.
All right.
So next we're moving from middle elo to high elo, and this is where Valkrin's going to shine because he knows all the champions he hates to see on his team when he's playing in Diamond, for example. More teamwork, more personal skill, a lot more respect. So champions that some champions won't have success just because the enemies will respect them more. So I'll let Valkyrie go ahead and talk about the high elo tiers list.
So the ones that I really, really hate to have on my team are champions like Volibear, where it's almost just a matter of time before when you're Volibear in a game, you just become completely useless. You can have a beast early game, but unless you put a lot of time into Volibear, and he's an easy to play champion, but you learn the minute itemization differences that you need to do and how you position effectively, because you're basically, once the game reaches the mid game, you are no longer in control of the game as Volibear, especially in team fights. You're just going to get kited. It's very difficult to make Volibear work. Even the players that one-trick Volibear can never really reach Challenger with him, and struggle to maintain Master Tier with him as well. Nasus, way too predictable in his play style. He can work, but you don't really want to wait for Nasus. You would rather have a top laner that can interact with your team. He's a really selfish pick. Same with Master Yi. It's these two picks can definitely take over games even in high elo, but it's too much hard work for the payoff. You ultimately will just scale for 30 minutes, one person gets caught, you still lose the game. Whereas early game top laners and junglers and stuff like that can have more impact in high elo and can interact with Master Yi in a way that shuts him down. Lissandra, a pick that I honestly think if you play her enough, she could be playable at high elo. I've seen some people like Scarra playing her a little bit in Diamond 1 and Low Master and finding a little bit of success. But she ultimately is just outshined by almost every other mid laner in the game, in every dimension. Better wave clear, better roams, better assassination potential, better 1v1 potential. She's just a weak pick, but she's got a lot of all-aroundness where she's really easy to play. but you'd rather just have something like Malzahar if that's what you're looking for on your team. Nautilus, just a really ineffective tank, is going to lose top lane, not a good jungler, not a good support to have. Galio, all these champions generally have like pretty low win rates, and some outliers, of course, like being like sometimes a Mumu's win rate's like at 50%, and you got a little bit better. But these champions across the board are just generally like taken advantage of. They're selfish picks, like Vi. It's like she's early game focused, but if she loses early game duels to most other champions. So it's like these are champions that just don't find effectiveness in high elo. You don't want to have them on your team because they're outshined in almost every dimension by something else. There's a better tank. There's a better carry for the early game. And if you have them on your team or you're playing them, you're basically just putting yourself at a disadvantage just for the sake of playing something different.
And one of the notable ones that I'm seeing chat talk about that we actually took off, and I meant to talk to you about this, was Mordekaiser. Do you find that Diamond Mordekaisers are acceptable now, or should Mordekaiser still be on the list?
That's honestly one that I struggled with like defining, because I think if you play Mordekaiser effectively, he can still find success on this patch because of his early game, because you get the Dragon Ghost, because of the snowball potential. I just don't think he's played enough to even know. I think his only viable position is bottom lane as the carry, and even then it's like he loses to Draven, he loses to Lucian. So it's like you'd have to be against something like the Jinx, a hyper-scaling one that you can get their Ghost later and still win. You can take advantage of their early game. But it is a very high-risk pick. So that was pretty close to being on here because of just how risky it is versus the payoff being about the same as a lot of other early game champions.
All right, I think that about does it for the list. There's one more slide, but I wanted to mention, because it's not on the next slide, if you guys will leave comments and let us know if you like this type of video, if you have any ideas or any comments about champions that should be on the list or should not be on the list, let me know, as well as, what's on the screen.
Yeah, if you want to know more details, if you got a burning question like, Valkrin, why is Nautilus on your list? Well, come to my stream and I'll answer it. And you can also interact with me in other levels, like in the comments below the YouTube video, subscribe to the YouTube video, follow me on Discord where we have more in-depth discussions about particular things. You can have a hand in a lot of what goes on behind the scenes if you choose to do that. But the biggest way to support me is through my stream right now. So just tuning in and watching can help the content creation process, because we do make a lot of the videos on stream, and you can participate in that and also support future content creation. And of course, don't forget about our future videos, like the God tier list video coming out very soon, and a video talking about Nunu and the support role and why I don't play it as much anymore. You have any closing thoughts, Tyler?
We'll keep trying to make this list better and better, and there'll be graphics next time, I promise. It's just there are so many names on the list that we're trying to really refine it down to be just the worst of the worst. Hope this wasn't too long for you. That's all I got to say today.
All right, have a good one.